Welcome back to the Agency Intensive Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Angelo Zanetti, co-founder and co-CEO of Elemental, a Cape Town-based web and software agency that's been shipping product and building platforms for more than 20 years. Now, myself and Angelo met in King's Cross in a very Harry Potter-esque way at an event several months ago, and I just had to get him on the show. We talk how to scope an MVP without bloating it, what happens when founders of Vibe Code, I think we've maybe all been doing a bit of that, and prototype and hand it to an agency, why off-the-shelf tools often break workflows, the hiring and culture choices that actually scale dev teams, and the security pitfalls everyone is ignoring with quick AI builds. Expect practical war stories, repeatable playbooks, and blunt advice you can use right now. If you build software, run a dev agency, or attempted to launch a product, this one is for you. Right, let's get into it. Hey, Angelo, how are we doing?
I'm good, thanks. And yourself? Thanks, Richard, for having me on the podcast.
No problem at all. Looking forward to this. Well, me and Angelo met about 15 months ago in an amazing location in the centre of London, so I guess quite a private dining room area that overlooks King's Cross Station. It was very Harry Potter-y, wasn't it? I think, but a beautiful day we had talking about all things agency. So I thought, we've got to get Angelo on the podcast. So welcome to the Agency Intensive Podcast.
Thanks so much. Really excited to be here. And yeah, it was a really interesting venue and a good day. And yeah, good to meet you and keen to get into this.
Yeah. So I think that's probably partly where this project came from. Obviously, we like to go to quite a lot of events here at the agency and Agency Intensive, and obviously mixing it with different agency owners. And Angelo runs a very specific and quite unique agency, so I was very keen to get you on. So I think before we get into the nitty-gritty and the ups and downs of agency world, sort of introduce yourself, how you got into the world of agency, the agency world and development.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So Angelo Zanetti, I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of a company called Elemental. We're a web and software development company based out in Cape Town, South Africa. We've been doing this for about 20 years now. So running the agency, and how we started was actually, more out of necessity than sort of something that we planned. So when we started our agency was sort of the height of the .com bubble that exploded. So for the older viewers and listeners, you would relate to that. But basically, for those who don't know, early 2000s, there was a big .com boom that happened, and all sort of tech companies and tech jobs, took a real hammering. The stock market got hammered, and jobs were shed left, right, and center. And my business partner, Jerry, who came over from Holland, and we were kind of really looking to start something because we couldn't get jobs. So we thought, okay, well, let's just start a development company. We had some skills. And that's sort of how it started organically,
So it's more through necessity at the time because you were like, right, what are we going to do? Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. Necessity is exactly the right word for what we had to do. Yeah.
So fast forward pretty much 20 years, isn't it? I think. Would I be right? And it's pretty much to the day almost 20 plus years. Obviously set up you and a mate, I guess, back in the day, and figuring stuff out. And here we are now, 20 years later. So give the sort of listeners a feel for the agency size now and the sort of setup you've got.
Sure. So, we're about 25 people now. We predominantly a team of developers. We've got some project managers, some QA testers, a designer, and then some sort of HR admin, finance staff. So not a big agency, but a sort of a very lean and mean agency with a lot of experience. As I mentioned, based in Cape Town.
Lean and mean. I like that. A lean and mean. I might steal that.
Yeah, go for it.
Lean and mean. So 20 years, obviously seen a lot. You mentioned there, 2005, 6, 7, 8, that was a very tough time. I was in business then, I think we're maybe a similar age. Yeah, I ran a business back then, some very difficult times as, across the planet, really. So obviously you've seen a lot in terms of sort of different economic situations. 2008 was particularly a bad year for the economy. More recently, COVID and so forth. Why do you think you guys are doing so well? Because I think, development agencies, we work with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of challenges, I think, with different, there's a whole host of different development style agencies and where they focus exactly on platforms or, why do you think Elemental's done so well?
I think that the 2008 financial crisis didn't hit South Africa as hard as it hit, US, UK, Europe. So I think we're a little bit lucky like that. COVID was actually good for us. So we were quite lucky in a sense that we were one of the industries that wasn't affected by COVID. And if anything, it was one of the industries that benefited from lockdown and forcing companies to go online, and they needed to build better online presences and tech solutions and things like that. So, I even remember the one Easter weekend during COVID, we were all at home working, and we pretty much worked that whole weekend through like early to late night. And, which was kind of really blessed to be in that situation rather than have our company shut down and have no income. But I think that quite a few reasons why we've done pretty well is I think the first thing is that Jerry and I, we've got very strong technical backgrounds. So, we were not really business people. We didn't study business. We studied development. So that means we had to learn business, the long way and the hard way.
Yeah.
But when we're dealing with prospective clients and, potential projects, we're always able to sort of have that business hat on as well as a sort of technical hat and really be able to kind of understand what the clients want and solution sell from the get-go and guide the user and sort of really have their best interest at heart and act as a tech partner, which I think a lot of people appreciate, and a lot of people that are trying to build tech products are not technical. So, people do get taken advantage of, and there's a lot of jargon that gets thrown around, and people can sort of really just trust what a provider is saying to them. So I think being really impartial and just holding their hand through the journey has worked really well. I think SEO is also quite an important factor that's always been really good to us. We've had a lot of focus on SEO, and it's always been really great from a lead generation point of view.
So generating leads from your own SEO, not so much for clients, or both?
No. Yeah, we don't do any marketing services. It's purely for our own lead generation and positioning. And I think doing good work, that's always something that we push hard on. Be really passionate about the work, be proud of your work, and often really good work leads to more work, right? If our clients are building their businesses and the tech we're building for them is integral to their growth, more work will come of that, and they will also refer other people to us. And I think finally, towards the last few years, really sort of positioning ourselves more as specialists at what we're really good at, and then not doing things that we aren't very good at. At some stage, we even had a marketing division within our business.
Majority of agencies maybe try to do everything over the years. Opportunities come along. Can you do this? You think, well, we maybe could. And it's, X amount of $1,000 or rand or, pounds or whatever. And then you soon regret it, I think, over time, don't you? You look back, but now you're very much stay in your lane. If something comes along that is maybe an opportunity, but it's not your wheelhouse, not your flow, not your team's flow. Because I think that's the thing. You take it, but you might take it, but the reality is it's a short term. And sometimes you have to take stuff, when there's a real challenge commercially within a business. But I think you can do more harm than good mid to long term, because, that team are now doing something that is not their flow, that, is disruptive maybe. There's definitely caveats to that. You have to do what you have to do to survive at certain times, don't you? But really staying in your lane. And then I think, you really simplified it there with, just doing a bloody good job, it's sort of a fundamental thing that I think does get missed, doesn't it? Chasing a lot of new business potentially, but hang on a minute, we've got these clients that actually, if we do a good job, we must do a good job. They're going to stick, they're going to stay, they're going to recommend, as opposed to, right, just chasing and not focusing on, hang on, just doing a flipping good, exceptional job. They will not leave. They cannot leave, unless, again, some disaster happens commercially at their end. They're with you for the long term, and you're building that, that real sort of strength within the business. Yeah, no, it's really, really good. Well, thank you for that. So I know you talk a lot, a lot of what you do is around MVPs. And building out, and helping, I believe, we'll get into it, companies that want to build something, and you've got to prove that process potentially as a starting point, and then, they potentially, invest more in that. So I know you've done a few podcasts on this. I'm not the expert on this, although I did mention MVPs a few times in a recent talk I did, because, with the different vibe coding tools. Dirty word on this podcast, I'm sure, so apologies.
Mm-hmm.
We've been able to do a few more things on the SEO side. So, what patterns are you seeing at the moment when founders first approach you about their MVPs, and where do you think they're going wrong? Because I think, there's quite a few sort of challenges out there, isn't there?
Yeah. No, there's a whole, MVPs are a whole sort of topic by themselves, but I think some of the things that founders get wrong is, just to come back to what an MVP is, they're probably working in a certain industry for many years. They've seen the ins and outs of it, and they've seen a problem, and they've kind of thought about a solution, and now they want to build a solution, and it's hopefully very niched, which is great, and it's solving a specific problem. But one of the things is that founders are really passionate about this new product that they want to launch, or it could be, a company want to launching a side venture as well, like a tech venture. And what we often see is that they want to sort of jam pack the MVP with a lot of, nice to have features, and this kind of contradicts what an MVP is, because it's meant to be a minimum viable product. It's meant to be very lean, solving a specific problem, get it out to market, get some traction.
Indeed.
And so by packing in sort of nice to have features, or non-core features, as we like to call them, you're delaying your go to market, you're adding to your development costs, which is actually good for us, because we're doing more development work, but potentially also building features that are not going to be used or of much value and may need to be discarded, which is kind of a waste of money. So rather build things that are really going to address your users' problems. So I think that's probably the biggest issue. And I think, another issue is that founders think that, hey, I'll build it and they will come kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
And, they think, great, I've built this, whatever, web app, mobile app, I've launched it, and now the floodgates are going to open. And Richard, you'd probably know even better than me from a marketing standpoint that it doesn't work like that. You need to really think about marketing. You need to think about, getting users on board, getting traction. It's a new brand. And I think a lot of founders don't think about the marketing aspect, or they don't allocate a big budget to it, which, I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on that side, from a marketing point of view.
I see it a lot. I mean, I'm thinking about just going to obviously there's different types of things you can build and set up, but, go, right, we're going to build this website that sells X, Y, Z, and they maybe spend whatever, 50K on building the website, but then, there's not a lot of thought to the marketing until the website's finished or nearly finished. It's like, whoa, the marketing needs to be part, or the research piece for sure needs to be done way in advance. So the product's built in a way that's got that customer more. I think a lot of founders are very blinkered to their understanding of a market as opposed to what the actual market is. thinking, buying. They make a lot of wrong assumptions, and then they do the market research more, actually, with maybe spending test budgets or building waiting lists and things like that. It's something that we do a lot more of. If you're interested in XYZ, we're launching this. And obviously, if you get nobody on the waiting list, it's like, okay, maybe this is not the best idea if we've got nobody on the waiting list. But yeah, they need to be hand in hand. So, yeah, I think, you've got a lot of money gets wasted, doesn't it? I think, in a lot of time, because they're just all in, build this massive thing. I think we've been guilty over the years, maybe even recently, of trying to build certain things, but trying to build this as opposed to, hang on, let's go here, build this, let's prove it, and then we can add to this further down the line. So maybe walk me through an actual proper project, if that's possible, where it's sort of work us through an actual proper MVP. I think obviously you've worked on a lot of different builds and projects. It'd be good to sort of put some reality into the process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One of our clients, they're called Change Cars. They approached us in 2021. They were very strong in the automotive business, but had no idea about tech at all, right? And they said that they wanted to build a website where it could compete with Autotrader. You've got Autotrader in the UK. It's also it's the biggest car platform in South Africa, and one or two of the other platforms. And the idea or the angle was that a lot of the dealers were kind of, they had no choice but to use Autotrader because it's such a big platform, and there was a lot of sort of dodgy or unscrupulous dealers on those platforms selling cars that were not sort of really great. So our client wanted to come with an angle that only sort of verified and vetted dealers could be on his platform. And there's a lot of trust, because we've all heard the stories of people getting, sold a dodgy car or sold an accident, a car that's involved in an accident that's been sort of repurposed.
Yeah.
And so that whole process he wanted to fix. But the thing is, we couldn't just build this massive platform. So we had to start quite simple. And we focused very much on the search and the usability, because that's kind of key. When you're looking for something, you want to be able to search by different criteria and just find what you're really looking for. So it was quite tricky because we did that, but we also had to onboard the dealers. We needed the stock, the vehicles, because without the stock, you're not going to get people using the site. But people, who you want to use the site also need the dealers on board. So it was kind of a balancing act of getting dealers on board, getting users on board, building something sort of simple and functional, which we did. And then over time, after the MVP sort of got traction and, people started to use it, then we started to add more and more features. And now it's sort of a fully fledged product with loads of features that we're kind of rolling out all the time. But I think that minimum viable approach worked really well as sort of being very key about the core features and not adding these nice to have features. And then once you get traction, add those in. And then the market also tells you, your users tell you what you want. And we call it that they build your product for you. If they're demanding certain features or whatever it is, then, great. They want it, they need it. And, you build it and you're kind of really addressing your user base.
Yeah, that you say it so eloquently. It's pretty, you can just build this massive thing, spend 2-3 times what you need to spend, and in reality, build it wrong because you're not listening to the users. You're building features that maybe the 1% of the users are going to use, and that's cost you 10% of the budget. I think probably a lot of the listeners will have used, Autotrader. Literally probably most days I look at cars. It's like one of my things. So I'm on eBay, I'm on Autotrader, I'm on Piston Heads. And as soon as you started talking and stepping us through that sort of all those filters, there's the base filters that you really, really need. The sort of maybe make, location, make, budget, color, but then there's probably another 50 variables that you can have, and you want a few more for sure, but there's probably 20 of them you don't really need, and that's maybe 20% of the budget to build that in.
Sounded like a really good idea, actually. I was getting quite into it when you were saying with the because the car market's an interesting one, should we say? We do a lot in car parts, like it's a big part of our agency, car parts and classic cars.
Okay.
Yeah, very big part actually. We've got quite a lot of clients in car parts, and it's very there's a lot of variables like there is in buying a car. When you're buying a part for an engine, there's a lot of the product pages have to do a really strong job of explaining the difference between things, or the categorization and the products categories, subcategories, the associated products. If they're the wrong associated products and it's for a different model, you've got a big problem, sort of thing. Yeah. So you do quite a lot in the car market then?
Quite a bit in the automotive industry.
Yeah.
And it's quite a complex market. There's it's quite a traditional market that's obviously come online, and it's great to see how tech is sort of helping people through different things, buying, selling, getting better quotes, whatever it is. But there's a lot of data behind it as well, a lot of intricate data, like you said, part numbers, model numbers, make numbers, variants, things like that. So there's a lot behind the scenes.
I think we've got one client with 180,000 SKUs on their store. And obviously probably it's classic cars, but it's a lot of SKUs, and then they're in 30 countries, or there's 35 feeds for that company, so it's millions of products in feeds. So very complicated. Have you ever bought a car online without seeing it? Curious.
I actually did. I actually used that client for that, and they own another business which it's actually called Screen, and you can send someone to look at a vehicle. They'll do a full screening of the vehicle. They give you a full report, and it's like the best service ever. It's not even probably in the UK. It's pounds. It's probably £50. So it's a real no-brainer, and they check everything and give you a full report, and so that's worked really well.
And then you bought the car, and the car was okay. It
was as per the report. So I'm not a mechanic, so I don't even know to check different things in the car, dipsticks, and
you can tell it looks nice, but what's under the hood? No idea.
Yeah, exactly. And they sort of picked up things that I didn't even see from the pictures. So minimal things, but it's been.
It's funny when I've had company cars and they go back. I've got a few different cars, but when I have a company car and the lease company come to take the car back, after the 3-4 year lease process, and they send an inspector, and it's almost like he's got a he's literally like looking at every square inch of the car, and the detail that they go into to inspect when because then they're going to charge you for any marks on the vehicle. So I've had some interesting conversations with those guys over the years. But surprising the little things that you just don't spot. But if you send, that's really good value then, isn't it? £50 ish, the equivalent of £50. Yeah. I bought a car in COVID, and I didn't go and see it. And it was, I think I got lucky, but it was a fairly new car, so it only had like 800 miles on the clock. But I did buy a car.
Okay.
I did speak to them on the phone, but I didn't go and see it because you couldn't, because we were in lockdown, but they could deliver it. So they delivered a car to me in lockdown, sort of thing. And then I still couldn't really drive it very far because there was limits on what you could do.
Yeah.
It was sat there, then when we could go out, it was like, right, let's go. Yeah. All right. Good. Well, I'd love to talk to you more about the automotive side, so we'll maybe do that separately. But so your philosophy is software should adapt to the business, not the other way around. And I think that's quite different to most people. Maybe we explain that to the listeners. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So a lot of software, off-the-shelf software, whether it's a CRM or a project management tool or a workflow piece of software, is built as a standard product. So the companies that build these, they need to standardize a product, and they need to have thousands, if not billions, of customers and users.
Yeah.
And therefore and there are slight customizations that you probably can do, but often they're sort of restrained to be standard products, which otherwise, if they had to customize it for every client, it would be a nightmare from their side. So it makes sense for that why they standardize it. And so what we find is that, particularly from a sort of a digital transformation perspective, is that we believe that, companies, how they work and how their processes are and how their systems are and how they communicate and how they manage different workflows are very sort of specific to each company, right? And a lot of these companies will try and adapt their processes to work with the software that's available as a stock standard off-the-shelf piece of software or a SaaS software, which can work. But what we've found is that often companies are using, outdated software, so very old software, or they're using, the wrong tool for the job. So for example, we've seen it quite a lot where companies are using like Excel sheets or Google Sheets, and they're kind of running everything on their business through that. And they share this sheet in their company and everybody's got access to it, and they can do certain things, but then they can't really, have specific functionality or certain data views for certain users. Either you have access to everything or nothing. And it's kind of limited in what it can do. I mean, you can write some VB scripts and formulas and things like that, pivot tables. But, it's kind of like they start hitting a roadblock, and it constrains them, So as the business is growing, they're trying to scale. The software is sort of holding them back, and they're kind of working inefficiently. And that's where we say that, building software that is really specific for how they work now and how they would work in the future as the business grows. Maybe they're opening up new branches or getting new warehouses or whatever it is that they're doing. We'd really, we've been building a lot of software for clients that are so specific to their unique requirements. But what that means is that we're not rebuilding things that exist. So if they're using like HubSpot CRM or Xero accounting or other tools, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. That doesn't make sense, but we'll sort of connect what's needed. Yeah, exactly. We connect things and we get all the systems to speak to each other, and then we create whatever they need from a workflow point of view, from a sort of a data dashboard decision-making point of view. So the software is built and designed for their requirements, not their processes changing to fit the software.
Yeah, I get it. And I guess, agency intensive is sort of the, that sort of element around the agency. Obviously that completely makes sense from, the client perspective, but from an agency, other development agencies that are listening to this episode, I guess from a commercial point of view, you're building a project, you're creating, something that, and you've got this front end work, but then you're working with the client on a continual basis, on a retainer basis, potentially. I'm interested in how you sort of do that. But, I think the listeners will be very interested in that sort of commercial side, how you like to work and what you've seen works well for you commercially, but also from the client's perspective. Because obviously, like you said, people can come in, want this thing, but really what they need, and what we want ideally as an agency is some sort of continual work with that client where we're helping them continue and helping them with different things that come along and supporting them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, maybe I'll run through the whole flow quickly.
Yeah.
So they'll come to us, they'll express a problem. We're running our business like this. We're using these outdated tools, and this is kind of what we need. And, they don't always know what they need, or they can't always articulate it. So we'll do some sort of discovery process with them where we'll really understand the entire requirements, what their vision is. We extrapolate that from their mind into documents. We scope it out.
Yeah.
And then we plan the project and specify how it's going to work now and also in the future. We may want to include some sort of future phases that are sort of nice to have features, but they aren't necessary for now.
Like options. Yeah.
Then things that they know they want, but maybe they can't afford now or aren't needed now, but at some point they will need them. So it's good for us to know that up front so we can sort of make provision for that. If I use the analogy of building a house, maybe I'm building a single story house, but maybe in 3 years' time I want to build the first floor, So let me make sure my foundation is strong enough to cater for, the ground floor and the first floor. So
Yeah.
and then after the project's done and built, then typically there's a support and maintenance agreement where we are supporting and maintaining the software. We're making small adjustments, we're making small enhancements, and that's sort of on an ongoing basis. And then there'll typically be other bigger phases, which I mentioned, where we will roll those out as, the client goes, well, great. We're kind of really needing this next phase of features because we can see how it's going to add value to us. So, it kind of actually continues like that almost indefinitely, and some clients it's not often, and some clients it's all the time. They want new things done. So that's typically how the process works.
Good. No, thank you. I appreciate sharing that. I think development agencies typically there's a few different models, isn't there? Where I think ultimately there's this piece where there's doing a big piece of work to build a product or build a website, and then it's obviously either win new business. Of course, you need to do that, but then it's then what the different styles of retainer or project work after the main project is launched. It's quite an interesting model in development agencies, quite different to marketing agencies, because that is definitely normally stacked very heavily on retainer and less project, whereas development's normally the other way around, which I think takes a bit more, maybe a few more sleepless nights as a development agency than a marketing agency. But then we could argue the other way, maybe, I think, as well.
Yeah, no, it's a slightly different business model, but you are correct.
So obviously, I think my understanding is you've got a change of direction then. So back to the sort of agency, the team. You are based in South Africa. The sort of most agencies, I think now more and more, definitely, if we were doing this 18 months ago, we're moving full remote and more moving out of offices and so forth. And I think now we're seeing a shift for sure. We have our office, but we have people scattered as well in a few different places. But ultimately, we do have a physical office with 80% of our team here. So, I'm really keen to sort of discuss that. You keep everyone's in-house, I believe, in Cape Town. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So everyone's in-house, in office 5 days a week. And we've always, besides COVID, we've always been a sort of a in-office company. I was actually talking to someone this morning at a meeting, and when COVID hit, some of our developers were asking us, can we get like special medical exemption so we can go and work at the office? And because they just really liked working at the office. We've got a nice setup there. Yeah. So we are fully office bound.
Yeah, so you found a lot of advantages, maybe the odd challenge with that. Maybe step us through the sort of advantages, challenges that you've come across and where you are now with it.
So there's, I think for us, the advantages definitely outweigh the disadvantages. So I think a few things. First thing is we're able to really build a super strong culture within our business. I think it's very difficult to do that remotely. So everyone's in the office. If you want to have a meeting, you want to go talk to someone, just go sit next to them or jump in a meeting room, collaborate, speak face to face. Collaboration is a lot easier. So you've obviously got teams working on projects as well, designers, developers, testers, project managers. So again, you can also really collaborate. And I think you also, there's something magical about in person. You can read a person's body language. You can, whereas maybe on a Google Meets call or something like that, it's a lot more abrupt and to the point, and, you don't read between the lines so much. And sometimes you pick things up from a person's body language that maybe something's off, or maybe, something, you can address it, whereas you wouldn't pick that up necessarily on a Google Meets call. And then, our culture is very much about, mentoring, coaching, growth. And I think that works extremely well when you've got people, more senior people, mentoring, more junior, mid-level people, and they can literally go and sit next to each other for half an hour and show them this is how you should do things, and this is your problem, and this is how I would tackle it. And it's really, really works well. And again, you can read that sort of body language. Is this person taking on board what I'm saying? Are they feeling a little bit, overwhelmed? Is it intimidating, or are they like really getting it, or are they too shy to say, hey, so you can really help the mentoring and coaching. And I think we're also just able to monitor our quality and our delivery, and, that just helps a lot with everyone being in-house. And I think, we've all heard some nightmare stories. And again, this person I was speaking to this morning was about, people abusing working from home. And he was saying that, there's a certain golf course. This guy was Irish, and he's saying, since lockdown on a Friday between 9 and 11, there's a lot more people playing golf of a certain age group. And this golf course is doing really well. And they asked the guys, like, are you guys not working or whatever? They're like, no, we've got our first meeting at 12. So, can put in the right golf.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll maybe do a drive by the golf course. No.
Yeah. And then you get people moonlighting as well, which is also,
Okay. So have you had a few challenges then as well? Obviously, it sounds like you're very, very keen on the office and them coming into the office. Do they work from home the odd day, or no? It's like in every day.
No.
Yeah.
Every day. I mean, unless someone is.
That's quite unique, I think, in this at the moment. I think so. If they said to you, next week, could it be okay if I work from home for a week? You're like, no. It's a sort of that's just
well. I mean, I think, look, so that's not entirely true. Some people can work from home, and I think it's maybe someone's, I don't know, they've got something happening at their house, some renovations or a plumbing thing, or maybe they,
family.
or they like coming off of a cold and they don't want to bring the cold to the office, but in that case, that's fine, But in terms of challenges, I think our major challenge is actually hiring, because a lot of developers or even testers, project managers, anybody in this sort of tech space, they're used to working remotely or hybrid, hybrid fashion, and
especially on the old side, that technical development, intricate, because we found it's funny how it's an interesting conversation from my perspective, because if you spoke to me 2 years ago, we're 95% in house, and we had a couple, the odd person remote. But now we're actually, we have the core of our staff here, just in the area I'm sat right now, in the office now. This is, the studio is within the office. But then we are hiring in South Africa, as I mentioned before we started recording, and we're building out a team in South Africa, dotted around South Africa, and that's going extremely well, and we're. I think we haven't done a drive-by around any golf courses in South Africa, but I think hopefully. But yeah, we're sort of building that for the reason you're alluding to now. There's sort of geographical restrictions of very specific skills. We feel that where we are we're in the heart of Lincoln in the UK, sort of central UK. Been here a long while, so we're fairly well known, and I think, of course, there's a lot of other really good people here, but when you want somebody very, very specific, and you've maybe got a very specific skill that you're after, but you've only got maybe 2 people within 60 miles that can do that role, and when you open up the whole of South Africa or whatever country, you've now got 50 candidates that are very, very strong. And we've genuinely found like the level and volume of candidates, say for in South Africa, have been way better than our local, the local area here. So it's an interesting sort of, you're sat in South Africa now, and I'm sat here in the UK, but I'm hiring literally around the corner from you.
Yeah, but no, that's good, and I think it's all about delivery. I think if people are delivering and they're communicating well and they're they're taking their jobs seriously, then I think hybrid remote can work completely.
Yeah.
And you also don't want to have a culture where you like really policing people. And I remember even before COVID, there was a company that had like cameras on developers, like filming them, and I was like, wow, you don't Who wants to work in that environment?
Yeah.
There's no trust,
We had somebody worked here, and then they got offered a new position. It's about 4 years ago when COVID, well, maybe 5 years ago when COVID kicked in. They took the new position, and then I saw them sort of 4 or 5 months later. I said, "Oh, how's the new job going? And how's it going?" She goes, "Oh, it's terrible." I thought, She goes, "Terrible." She said, "I went to the toilet, and I was like 10 minutes, and her manager rang her and said, 'Why have you been to the toilet for 10 minutes? I can see on the camera you weren't at your desk for 10 minutes. You went to the toilet for 10. Why? What's going on?'" It's like, what? So she was
that's police state.
Yeah, she was out of there, within a few weeks, just basically finding her next role, which, and I could list quite a few things that, like that where, yeah. Okay. So, obviously right at the beginning, and you're sort of saying you're very much, a hands-on developer, and that's your sort of superpower. But now you're a CEO. You built this very successful company. How do you stay connected to this technical side and keeping up to speed with obviously a lot of advancement in the last couple of years with the AI side of things, which we'll get into in a minute. But how do you sort of stay up to speed with the technical side, but also running and looking after a team and projects and growing?
Mm-hmm. So from a coding point of view, I mean, I don't code anymore for probably, 10, 15 years now. Yeah. But I still have a very strong grasp of the principles. So I still get quite involved in the early stages of projects where, I'm helping with some of my colleagues to scope out these projects and kind of design the solution or the architecture. So that always keeps me sharp and on my toes. And from time to time, I do a bit of research, I do a bit of reading about tech. And then we've also got some of our sort of more senior staff that are doing research, or I'll see something and I'll go, "Please go and research that." And then they'll feed back to me and bring me up to speed. And then we'll say, "Okay, is this something we need to pursue as a company or not?" Yeah. So that's sort of how I stay sort of abreast of what's happening.
So you're involved, but you're not sitting there writing code. Yeah. Do you think you could write code now, or did you get a bit of a cold sweat thinking about it?
Look, sometimes maybe when there's an issue and we've got all these processes for a good reason, and sometimes I just want to go, "Okay, let me just go in the code and fix it," And but it's not the right way to do it. So I mean, I can still read code, I can understand it. But I don't think I can write much code. Maybe a few database queries and things like that. But that's about my extent right now.
Yes, I can. Yeah. I can write the BR command to get a line, to get a break. That's why.
Well, there we go, man.
Yeah. I think I'll leave it there. I don't think I have no intention. So, this sort of keep me up to speed with what's happening in the industry and, AI. I think vibe coding seems to be a huge thing at the moment. More and more, people like myself that are not devs, not coders, go, "Oh, I built this thing." I went to, the Replits, the Lovables of the world, and I signed up for free, and I built this amazing tool. And well, I don't need a developer anymore. We've got, we've built this thing. And obviously, I'm sure you're seeing this more and more. What's your take on that? I think people can build their prototypes fairly quick. They think, but of course we all know that there's inherently a lot of challenges, a lot of issues, and a lot of stuff that is basically just doesn't work. What's happening with all that stuff? What are you seeing, and how's that maybe affected, or have you embraced that side of things?
Yeah, so we've seen this quite a lot recently, and what tends to happen is a company or an individual, they have an idea, they see a gap, and they've got a solution. Yeah. And as you say, they use tools like Lovable or Replit or whatever else to vibe code a solution. They get a few screens done. They get a few user journeys done. And what's happened is they've kind of built in inverted commas. They've built let's call it a platform. And it's kind of got to a certain point, and then they sort of get stuck. And then they ask us to go, "Hey guys, this is what we've done. We just need you guys to finish off this MVP." And we go, "Okay, well, since the concept, it makes sense from a
just finish it. A couple of days work."
Yeah, nothing major, And
I've done most of it.
So I mean, So the solution is good, right? Because they've kind of seen a problem, and the solution is on track to solve it. But, what we see is there's a few user interfaces which are decent. They kind of look good, but maybe there's a few user journey flows that don't make sense. You complete this step, but then you got to do something weird to get to another step, which is here or there. Like it's not the end of the world. But what's happened is there's been 2 or 3 instances now where they go, well, great, please help us, and we go, geez, okay, we'll try, but we look under the hood, we look at the code, and it's really bad, So what I mean by that is that there's buttons, there's forms, there's flows, but there's like hardly any functionality. And if I can use a sort of analogy of a car, is it's got 5 doors, it's got 4 wheels, it's got a bonnet and a
bodywork looks okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got some windows, and
but underneath it's like Fred Flintstone.
Exactly. So you open So there's no brakes, there's no suspension. There's like a little sewing engine of an engine.
There's no brakes. More importantly.
So we've seen this time and time again, and it's like, well, we can't really work with this, unfortunately. And it's a good proof of concept. It's a good sort of visual representation of what you've had in your mind, and you've kind of fleshed it out into like a few screens and a few user journeys, but it's not really good. And the other thing is that a lot of these AI tools are really bad from a security point of view. I mean, people are able to access their API keys, they're able to hack them, and it's a playground for hackers, to be honest. There's even some reels going around on Instagram where guys are just hacking these tools so easily and getting, it's like candy, and, taking candy from a kid, So that's been our sort of experience, with these AI tools. And,
So are we saying then that, to sort of have a play, but understand that, it's not something you should be launching if it's got, it's sort of, because I found myself playing and sort of, but I understand that to get a bit of a feel for what can be done and have a look at connecting maybe things, APIs and data and information, but obviously there's that security issue. But then if you're going to launch something, you really need to bring somebody in like yourselves to sort of make sure, obviously, and do the 90% behind the scenes. But I mean, do you find yourself using them at all, to sort of just to understand, maybe help speed up a little bit of a part of something, or just to get a feel for what they do? I guess you look at it maybe from a, is this a threat to our business? What can they actually do? Because that would make sense. But, my experience is, obviously is building what I would consider a very thorough prompt to do something, but I would never then put that out there as a front end that people can then go to. It's like an internal thing. If I was ever going to do something external, then I would, engage somebody like yourself to then, right, we built this thing, can you rebuild it properly?
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. You're spot on there, because I think it is good for prototyping and building proof of concepts. It's not perfect, but it kind of gets you quite far and along the journey. When we build software, there's so much besides, even let's talk about UX and design and user flows and all that side of things, from a functionality point of view, from an exception point of view, from a scalability point of view, that, the average vibe coder has got no idea about. So they're not even thinking about that, and they've got no knowledge to even build it into their prompts when they're building these sort of prototypes. But yeah, I think it's good, from a prototype point of view. What we're using AI for, I mean, obviously there's Copilot, and there's things like Cursor, which help our developers to become slightly more efficient, with code completion, again, you've got to be careful with that because they can be quite powerful and they can also edit your code quite a lot. And if you're a junior coder and you're kind of just trusting what this thing is doing and not understanding, it can actually alter your code quite a bit or delete code. And then, you don't really know that because you're not experienced enough. So again, it's a powerful tool, but, with great power comes great responsibility.
In the wrong hands, it can be...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It really is, because I talked about this a little bit in a talk that I did, from an SEO standpoint. We like to recommend our clients to build calculators more so from a SEO standpoint. So an example would be we've got a client that sells racking, warehouse racking, and you want to calculate maybe as an end user, you want to calculate how much racking do I need to fill a certain space. You build a very simple calculator that's, how long, how wide, how high do you want the racking? How many shelves do you want? Click, click, click. Right, you need 100 of this, 150 of this, and 20 of this. This is £10,000. So that's a very simple concept. So we've been able to liaise with clients to say, look, this is an idea. We could vibe code this. That sounds like a real quick and dirty way. But obviously, what we really want is for you to work with our development partners or their own, depending on the clients, they've got their own developers and build this tool. But the challenge is they might not sign it off. They haven't got the resource. They haven't got the capability, so it never gets built. But with vibe coding on something that's quite a small thing, that can be built quite quickly and quite economically. And that's from an SEO standpoint. We're trying to engage users to stay on a page. We're then trying to promote this tool so it can build backlinks to this tool. So it's something we're doing more and more, or encouraging our clients to do more and more of. But inherently, there's then this challenge around security, API keys getting in the wrong hands, so then they're getting all your data. So you've got to be very careful. Yeah. So I think
I think something simple like that, I think it makes sense, and you could probably get away with using something like that. But I think it's when you want to build a full product or a SaaS website or a whatever, then that's where it's too limiting.
Yeah. Well, Angelo, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to finish with a couple of questions. So from an agency side, we've got, let's say, we've got a few agencies listening right now that are at that point where there may be 4, 5, 10 people, and they're looking to scale to that next step, whether that's to go to 10, 20, 25, 30 people. What's maybe advice you would give them, or maybe a mistake you've made over the years that you would steer them away from? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say that too many agencies are way too generalist. We touched on it earlier, where you kind of taking on anything and everything. And at some point you need to do that when you're growing. Yeah. Especially digital agencies. I think, there's so many agencies that are called digital agencies, and, what sets you apart from your competitor? What are you really good at? So look at your positioning. How can you position yourself differently? Maybe you specialize in certain industries. Maybe you only do e-commerce, which I think, your agency is really well known to do e-commerce marketing for. Yeah. But try and niche down, or, position yourself and really sort of set yourself apart, somehow, and be intentional about that. And then sort of, set that as a goal, and then put some sort of strategies and tactics in place to kind of get there. There's actually quite a good podcast called the Two Bobs podcast. I don't know if you've heard it. And they speak about positioning and repositioning. And I think that's been something that was pretty good for our business, and I think could really help, sort of up and coming agencies to think about.
It's the sort of $1 million thing, isn't it? Do this, but then obviously when you're a certain size, you're trying to pay the bills, you're trying to focus on growth, and something, an extra 10 grand comes offered to you here. It's very difficult. It can be a difficult. So just to expand on that a little bit, obviously focus on a niche, sub niche of a niche, whether that's, PPC marketing for e-commerce or and building the technical agency around a certain industry or a certain set of products. So that's okay, great, we do that. But then in terms of trying to market your agency in that slipstream of a very specific niche, do you recommend going to events in that niche, or speaking at those type of events, or going on podcasts? Is there any one or two bits of advice to then, you've decided on your niche, what are you going to do marketing and sales wise or marketing wise to get known in that sub niche or niche?
I think, I would say that it would be all of those, go to those events, try and speak at events, speak on podcasts, create case studies. If you've done a lot of work in, well, let's say the medical field, then showcase that to the world, create case studies, create content about it, because the chances are that other companies that are similar to the companies that you've serviced are going to experience similar problems that you've solved for your existing clients.
Yeah.
So position your content in a way that it's evergreen. It's really talking to problems, and you're giving away a little bit of your value, but it sort of makes you you're perceived as the expert in that industry. So there's no silver bullet,
No, you got to do the work.
Yeah.
But I think that's brilliant advice, isn't it? You can build those case studies and that niche, or some of those niches, or some of those particular products that you built, or marketing, or whatever it may be. You've got a case study in there. I had somebody. That's pretty much interesting you say that, because I had somebody message me yesterday to say, do I mind giving them half an hour of my time? They've set up an agency and they want to really get traction. And pretty much that's what I'm going to say to them, is what you've just said, about, and what's probably spend half an hour chatting about that. And obviously they need to build their case studies out and go after more businesses that have got a similar problem, because you've solved that problem already for somebody. Yeah. And hopefully you can get that client on camera to say, hey, Angelo did a great job, and here we go. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. It could be anything you want. It doesn't have to be agency. It doesn't have to be dev. Definitely not dev.
No.
A book on anything that's helped you build a very successful life with your agency, or helped you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm reading the book called $100 Million now by Alex Hormozi. I'm sure you know Alex Hormozi. Yeah. So yeah, probably about a third of the way through, but really loving it. So yeah, I think that's a good book. I think he makes things so simple and dumbed down, but it's just so powerful as well. And great inspiration. Yeah.
It's on my desk at home. Yeah. I was
okay, good.
Yeah, they're good. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Those that want to find out more about you, Angelo, more about Elemental, what's the best way to do that and to reach out?
Yeah, so our website is elemental.agency. So that's elemental.agency. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. And it's been a real pleasure. We had a good discussion, and I think we covered so many topics in this time. Yeah. So it's been my pleasure. And thank you, Richard, for the invite.
Thank you. I look forward to maybe having a beer in Cape Town in the next 12 months with you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Give me a shout.
Cheers. Nice to see you. See you soon. You. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast. So you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.